Great. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Jenny, for the invitation to speak today with all of you. So my name is Katie Kabovchik. My work is in the areas of business planning. So I work with farmers, providing one-to-one support, and do some education through Big River Farms education program around farm business plans. And then, like Jenny said, I also work with Renewing the Countryside as a land access navigator. And the navigator program is part of the land access hub. So I'll talk about that a bit more as we're going along. But yeah, so I just thought I would start with, kind of what that process looks like working with land seekers, since that is, often the path, whether you're working with a navigator or not. But so usually the beginning of the conversation is really around land seeker goals. So what is your goal with purchasing land? So kind of back to what Whitney was talking about and did a great job going through yesterday, all those big picture questions of, what is your vision for what your farm will be? What are your values that you're bringing? And so that, just really gets us all on the same page to get a good understanding of what your goals are, what you want to do with this. And then second, we really get into the land, like what are you looking for in a property? This is usually, what's on the forefront of people's minds as they start this process. And it's also really fun to talk about this future business, this future farm. So really thinking about, what does a property need to have? What are the essential pieces for you to be able to operate the business that you want to run? And so as we get into those conversations, it pretty quickly comes up around, we start talking about what's affordable, what is your price range? So you kind of have to get into that a bit. And then also, what is your plan for running this business? So again, kind of what specifically does the property need, or what are you going to need to invest in so that you're set up to run the business that you are envisioning? So yeah, so that's what we'll talk about is the affordability, some options for loans, and then some real basic business planning concepts. So with affordability, there's different ways at, for coming to this number. If you are going the traditional route of just purchasing a home, the bank would tell you what you can afford. And that might be the right price for you, and it might not. So even if that is a number you've got from a bank, I do encourage people to really look at their own finances to come up with a number that feels affordable. So these are kind of the three areas that we look at, that we start with. So farm income. If you're farming, you already have a sense of, what that will be. So we can look at your current sales. And if you're not farming, you're still going to be able to make some projections. So thinking about this new property, the business you want to run, what are your sales going to be? And what is the potential for profit? So not just sales, but then what are also the expenses going to be at this new property? Another key part of that picture is, what are your living expenses? What are they currently, and then what would they be on a new property? So are you currently paying mortgage or rent that would be replaced with purchasing a property? Or are you going to purchase something in addition to where you currently live? So how does that change your monthly income and expenses? Does the farm need to make a profit to cover some of the mortgage or to cover some of your living expenses? So really just looking at that full picture of what are your costs, both for your business and your household, what's coming in, what's going out. And then your assets and debts are also part of that picture. So what do you own and what do you owe? I'm not going to spend much time on that. One, because it's not an area that I understand super well. And also it just can be so individual, and it's kind of along next to, it's important along next to these other things. But we'll spend a little bit more time on those. So so when you're looking at, if you're planning to finance the purchase through a lender, there's some different loans to think about. They all are similar in ways, and then there's some differences. So and this can be a place where people often get stuck. How do I know what lender to work with, or what's the best loan? And honestly, it often comes down to just what's really going to work for your situation. So rather than, spending time trying to figure that out, it's good to just start the conversation with a lender, and you'll probably get some direction from that conversation. So, the conventional bank loan that I just mentioned, where they pre-approve you for an amount, that's really relying on your income, your credit, your assets. But they're not looking at your farm operation. And this loan really doesn't work if you're, looking to run a farm operation, especially with this down payment grant. So then you're looking at a farm loan, a farm bank loan. And so again, they're going to be relying on similar things, your income, your credit, your assets, but they'll also look at your farm business plan. And they're going to be more familiar with those numbers and also supporting programs. And before we go to the next one, I just wanted to point out that I forgot to mention, there's these differences with loans, but the thing that any lender is going to look for is, everyone's going to want to make sure that the loan gets paid and that you don't get into trouble. So, so how is that going to happen? Where's the income that will guarantee this loan gets paid? And that can come from, these different lenders will focus on different sources to a degree. And then they're all going to be concerned about the property appraised value. So making sure that you're getting a good value for this loan. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. So then looking at a couple other loans that are specific for farming. So the Farm Service Agency loan, may have heard called an FSA loan. So that's through the federal government, through the USDA. The focus here is really on your business plan is how I look at this loan. The full financial picture is going to be part of the application. But what you plan to do with your business and how you're going to make income, that is a key part of this application. And because of that, the time frame is a bit different and the process is a bit different. So it's good to be familiar with that ahead of time. It takes longer, and it's important that that's part of the conversation right away. If you have a potential property that you're looking at, but there's some real advantages to that loan as well if it ends up being a good fit. Rural Finance Authority. So Jenny mentioned this through MDA. So there's a loan available to beginning farmers, the Minnesota Beginning Farmer Loan. That also looks at, kind of that full picture of what you're planning to do with your business, as well as other finances. It's a little bit different eligibility than FSA. They're looking for a farm income statement or a farm projected budget that would show that 50% of your income or more is coming from farming. And they partner with banks to finance. So you would find a bank that would work with this program to be the lender. And yeah, we can get into that more if people have questions. And then I also just have contract for deed on here. Just, there are alternative ways to finance land. These aren't your only options. Contract for deed or owner financing, that can work in certain situations if you're unable to get a loan for whatever reason. Or maybe this just is the most advantageous way to go. If you do go that direction, I highly advise working with someone to provide some counsel on that agreement. They have a reputation for borrowers to get into trouble if you aren't able to make all your payments on time. So it's just important to think through that agreement and have some legal advice.
And then I'll just interrupt quickly to add that if you are hoping to buy a farm with the down payment assistance grant, all of these options could work. So we don't have restrictions on, whether or not a contract for deed could work versus traditional farm financing. That's a common question I get. So I just want to add that too. A contract for deed would be eligible. All cash would be eligible, or someone, using a loan.
Great, thanks. So the financial documents that you're going to need, these are what you'll need for any loan, but also if you're looking to finance this yourself, if you have cash saved, these are still really good documents to have in place to understand. So again, you know what you're getting into. And if you're investing a lot of cash in a property, you know, you want to make sure that you still have the ability to operate your business, that you have enough cash coming in to do what you need to do or to invest in the property. So regardless of what your end goal is, you know, these are really good forms to understand, to have a good picture of where your business is going, and to just have that financial plan in place. So a profit and loss or an income statement is just a really basic statement that shows what you've made, all your sales and all your expenses. So this is a statement that's happened the past. You know, you're doing it at the end of the year to summarize that past year. So again, if you haven't farmed, you're not going to have this, but it can be a really useful form if you have farmed to you know, to track your experience, and then it's very helpful for making your projections. So as you get into your you know, that financial planning, you know, cash flow is that really key form to show when your money is coming in and when your money is going out, and does it all work out? Or are there places where are there months like in January and February where you have big negatives? And, you know, so just it's a tool to really figure out how you can balance that. So included in that is all your farm costs and your income and expenses. So I usually do that separately just to kind of you know, think through just those total category expenses. So with the farm budget, I'm making that like right next to, in a column next to the profit and loss statement, really projecting those numbers, ideally based on a past year. But again, if not, you know, based on your own research, conversations with other farmers, yeah, just researching costs and the price of produce. But yeah, figuring out those categories, those expenses, is yeah, really essential. And then when you put it into a cash flow, often that's when you add in your non-farm income and expenses. So I mentioned earlier, that is also part of the picture. You know, farming is not one that's usually, you know, super separated from your personal life, and often, you know, is going to rely on some combined expenses to make things, combined income to make things work. So you might have a monthly budget, so you'd be including that on the cash flow, or sometimes you know, if you want to look at that separately, that's fine too, to do a separate form for your non-farm income and expenses. But kind of like, you know, one of the earlier questions, you know, just knowing how much the farm needs to profit, or maybe your goal is just to break even. But how does that play out through your, you know, your first few years on a farm? So the balance sheet, that is another key form, and that relates to the assets and liabilities, so what you own and what you owe. So different, you know, this is one that different lenders will focus on a bit differently, as far as how, you know, important that those assets are. So it's, yeah, that's will come up, you know, when you're, I mean, I encourage you to meet with lenders. So we'll have a chance to ask some questions after I'm done here, but, you know, really meeting with a lender and asking, you know, how these things all fit together for your personal situation is really important and can be really helpful. So yeah, these financial forms are a huge part of your business plan, but just to kind of like create the context for how that fits in and what else you might want to focus on with your business plan. So going back to what Whitney shared yesterday, a lot of it, that business plan is really describing your situation. So, you know, what are you currently doing in regard to farming, or what are the skills that you're bringing? What is the background? You know, why are you doing this? What is your passion, your values, your vision? And then what are you going to produce? So an overall description of, you know, you're going to grow mixed vegetables, or you're going to raise goats. and a bit about how your farm operates. Is this, a family operation? Is this a larger scale where you have employees? Are you growing organically? Um, so kind of the big picture description of how you plan to operate your business. Um, and yeah, and then getting into some of the details in your projections is really a key part of the plan. So once you have that vision and that description, then it's like showing that on paper, showing the numbers and the details of how that really plays out. So this can be an area that takes a lot of time to really think through these details. So, with projections, we're talking about making projections around your crop plan. So what are the products that you're going to produce? How many acres? What crops? Any, to varying degree of details, depending on, again, what your exact goal is with your business plan. Um, and different lenders might want a different level of detail here. But for your own understanding, I think, getting into that is, whether it's a very specific planting schedule or if you just have some more general plans, but I think something on paper to create that plan. And then your markets plan is also a big piece. I think this can be one of the more challenging ones for farmers. I know myself, I love to grow the crops, but then doing the selling, it often takes a skill set that I'm not, it's not my favorite part, but it's really important, right? If you're growing a crop, if you're making a product, it has to be sold to be part of a business. So thinking about what markets you want to sell to, thinking about what price points you can sell at, how much time does each market take? Some business plans will get really detailed with, I'm going to plan to sell 100 bunches of beets at this market and, detailing everything out. Or you're going to grow, cabbage for the schools. So, lenders, again, to varying degrees, are going to want to see that detail of, where is your income coming from, and are these, pretty secure avenues of sales. So either showing your experience or showing your market research to support those plans. And then it all kind of comes together again with the financial numbers. So like I mentioned, doing a farm budget, I usually, start with doing that on its own. So, what are all those sales going to be? What are they total? Do you have other income that's coming into the farm? And then expenses, detailing those out in your different categories. And then, of course, there's always management in all of this. So thinking about how you will manage your resources, mainly your time and money. So how are you keeping track of everything that's going on, especially with, money you're spending, money that's coming in. Do you have enough time to do what you're planning? Who else is involved? Will you be hiring anyone? So yeah, just thinking through how much time this plan will take. Let's see. So yeah, so that's kind of the summary. I feel like that was pretty quick run through of what's included in a business plan. But really, a large focus of what I've worked on with business planning is just how to simplify and really get down to kind of the essential pieces. And I know other lenders too are really on that page of how can we, really get at what's important here and just keep it at that. Know that there are resources out there to help you think through, this whole process of, what's affordable and where are other sources of funding. So, just going directly to FSA, talking with a loan officer is a great place to start. So there's a link here to those offices. So you're working with FSA, you go to the county office where you plan to purchase. And if you don't know, if you're looking kind of all over, then that's okay. There's now a St. Paul office. So if you're in the metro area and are kind of looking all around the Twin Cities, that can be a good place to start, working with someone in St. Paul. But yeah, and they might redirect you to, to an actual, to an office that does lending, because not all the county offices have lenders on site, or loan officers. Um, but yeah, so anyway, you don't have to start with where you end up finding property. It's fairly easy to change. Then, so there's also a link to more information about the RFA loan. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Jenny, at this point.
I do work in the RFA, but not on the loan. So I'll just add, we've got the link here with the different loan programs we have. It gets into more of the terms for those loans as well there. And, you can start by reaching out to your lender and they can help you with the application for your RFA loan, or you can come to us first and um, our email and phone number for that loan program is there. That can be, it must be combined with a bank loan, but it can also be combined with one of the FSA loans too. And so just always to kind of tick down that interest rate for the farmer, but also, help the bank take on some of their risks. So we can get into more questions if people have about those in a bit here. And then I'll add to, if you are interested in finding a lender who works on these programs, so with these state loans or federal loans, the MDA has a list here of lenders that we partner with, and it's searchable by county. So you can find this page as well if you need help finding a lender who's familiar with these agricultural programs. And I can just get into the next one too. This is a program I work closely with. Another resource that the MDA has available is actually run by a bunch of other organizations, but it's our farm business management programs. So these are often one-on-one, but sometimes group classes, sometimes at your own pace, online classes. And, it's a wide spectrum of what is out there, but they all offer help setting up a business plan, working on these financial documents that Katie reviewed, record keeping, all sorts of other, some of them help with tax prep and other sorts of business things you need on the farm. We have a list of about 10 different programs on the MDA's website that the MDA has reviewed and sort of vetted, approved to be providing this support to farmers in the state. There's quite a few, and also private instructors around the state who can provide that. In addition, we have some scholarships. A lot of these programs have their own scholarships, and we offer a tax credit to help you pay for these. So, it's something that we really value as important. This business planning is very important step in this process, and so we're here to help you access it and pay for it. And I'll kick it back to you, Katie, for the navigators.
Yeah, thanks. So the Farmland Access Navigators, so I've been, mentioning that, and so it's hosted on the Farmland Access Hub. Here's our navigators. It's Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And we do have quite a few new ones that aren't on here yet. So I think we're up to about 18 navigators now. So we have an intake form to fill out, or you can reach out directly if you want to work specifically with any one of these navigators. And it's really to provide that one-to-one support. We definitely don't have all the answers. It can be challenging, working in a situation that's not very friendly to small scale farmers. But we can work with you on that one-to-one support with your business plans, getting your financials together, just really thinking through your options, your goals, providing, we have some other service providers that are in our network that we can reach out to if you need some legal support, reviewing documents. So some of that, the next session we'll get into as well, what support is available. But yeah, it can be, also, we don't have it listed here, but the Go Farm Connect is another program with Renewing the Countryside, and they're specifically focused on helping farmers access USDA programs. So we're providing a lot of training to those connectors to become familiar with the FSA loan process, to just work with you on getting that paperwork together, really understanding if it's a good fit for you. So that's another program to think about. Eggplant, I don't know much about, but yeah, U of M Extension has some of those resources.
Great. Well, I'll also put again, like, thank you, Katie. That was a great overview of all these. I think sometimes it can feel a little intense to get all that information at once. So it's great to have it summarized so well. Thank you. Katie's contact information is on the screen here if you want to reach out with more questions. Mine is there as well if you have questions about some of those MDA programs or about the grant. But before we get into group questions, I want to introduce a couple more guest speakers who can help get into the nuts and bolts of all these loan programs. So we have two lenders here, Christy Lilienthal from the FSA, and also Sai Tao from Compure Financial, which is one of those private banks that works with farms. So if you could both just briefly introduce yourselves, and then we can get into some questions. Christy, do you want to start?
Yeah, hopefully everybody can hear me okay, but I'm Christy Lilienthal. I'm a farm loan officer with the Farm Service Agency. Thanks for having me, and I thought, Katie, you did a pretty good job summarizing what FSA is. But essentially, we're a progressive lender to kind of help everybody graduate to commercial lending, and we do the farm loans. So like Katie said in her little overview, we are very heavy based on your actual farm and how you're going to plan to generate income to be self-sustainable, to have a feasible cash flow in order to make some of these loans happen. And we do have a couple of beginning farmer loans, and like she said, we do have loans that we can kind of work in with this beginning farmer grant that they're offering for you guys. I don't know if you want
Great.
any more than that right away, Jenny.
That's great. Thank you. Sai, do you want to just say hello and tell
Yeah.
us?
Hello, I'm Sai Tao with Compure Financial. We're part of the Farm Credit System. We're structured as a co-op owned by the farmers and rancher. We provide many types of loan, real estate loan to farmers that are, operating part-time, full-time, crop or pasture land, and also some recreational land as well. We do intermediate term loans. These are machinery, vehicle, livestock, also farm building construction. In addition to that, we do operating loans, which cover crops and livestock inputs, feeder cattle, and so forth. In a nutshell,
Yeah,
we
thank
do.
you. Yeah, maybe Sai, will start with you. I'm just curious, like, what is the number one challenge you see for, first-time farm buyers trying to use one of your like real estate loans?
I can probably talk about the, working with the down payment assistance grant. I have worked with a few of the awardees. One of the challenges, they don't have a plan in place. One. Second is, they have not worked with a land navigator in terms of seeking a piece of property, right? So we have encountered quite a few hiccups when, we have some awardee, they come in and said, we got this grant in August and we need to, get a loan to purchase property before June 30th. And it's almost, it's very difficult to do so. Not only that, some will come in, without a complete balance sheet, or even though if they do, their equity or cash that's available for down payment is only they rely heavily on the down payment assistance grant and nothing else. So that makes it, challenging. And, I have to explain that if you want to utilize the FSA down payment assistance program, you need at least that 5%, right? And then some find out that, we don't have that 3-year requirement and we can't qualify for that, that program. So it makes it difficult. But all in all, what we like to see as lender, having a business plan layout, really, stress the production cycle, marketing channels, and, having the financial plan in place. Getting a 3-year tax returns, the balance sheet I just mentioned, but the, aside from the enterprise budget, having a cash flow budget projection on a month to month, because, there are months where there's cash shortfall. And a lot of the farmers don't anticipate that. Those who do like crop production, they have the first 6 months, they have nothing to sell, but there's a lot of cash going out, expenses. And so those are stuff to think about as, that's what we ask.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So definitely timing, especially if you want to work on this grant, and also being prepared with a lot of those things Katie talked about. Christy, same question to you. What's kind of a number one challenge you see, or advice for someone walking in the door at FSA, first time farm buyers especially?
I would say some of the bigger challenges that some of our borrowers, when they come in to talk to us, is kind of a misunderstanding of some of our eligibility in a way, especially on the farm ownership side of loans. Even though they're considered beginning farmers, when we're looking at a definition of beginning farmers, we're wanting 3 years of farming experience on a manager level to be eligible for our loans. If you have relevant farming experience, we do have a list of things that we could substitute out 2 out of those 3 years for, and you could still be eligible for a farm ownership loan. One thing that we're a little different than some of your general commercial lenders is we require a signed purchase agreement and a copy of the well and septic test as part of a complete application. And once you apply with us, you have 32 days to get it complete. So we kind of want you to have some of your ducks in a row when you're ready to apply. And with us having a signed purchase agreement, one thing that some people have a hard time wrapping their head around is that we don't pre-approve. So you have to get that signed purchase agreement, talk to the seller, talk to your realtor, let them know that you're going to be dealing with FSA. And if they have any questions or you have any questions, I highly encourage you to have them reach out to a farm loan officer and we can kind of discuss and explain that process to them. Or else it is, similar to kind of what Sai said, just making sure that your records are number one. We want complete 3-year production and financial history records. So, the best records you can keep, that's kind of what's really gonna play into how quickly we can get a loan processed. Hopefully those are some of the big things. There's a ton more, but
Yeah.
Per each situation.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Christy. And again, just like echoing, like if eligibility is a major issue, you can work with one of these navigators like Katie and others across the state. They can help you understand those eligibility requirements, review your documents, they can even go into the lender's office with you and really help you understand those things. So it's another really great resource to consider. Um, Anthony, were there any questions from the group, or does anyone here have questions for these lenders, for Katie? Any questions, specific to financing or these, financial documents?
There isn't any questions in the chat. I think everyone's pretty much just taking everything in, I guess.
Great. Feel free to toss any of those questions in, or if you want to raise your hand and ask a question. We've got a lot of experts here. I guess maybe this is a similar question, but do you have any other advice, either Cy or Christy, for someone, maybe if they don't have those 3 years of records yet, if they're kind of a new farmer, or, other, general financial goals you recommend to people?
Yeah, I can talk on behalf of the Farm Service Agency. Sometimes if you're not quite making that 3 years of farming experience or the substitution, we do like to try to encourage people to go towards our microloan program. It's a loan $50,000 or less. It's a little less paperwork heavy. You're only needing 1 year of financials, etc., rather than that 3 year for some of our direct loans. And what that loan is, it's a nice smaller loan that's kind of a stepping stone to get you started, get you established. With $50,000, you could, get some annual operating costs to start up your operation, get that year's worth of experience in before you come in. We'll say, is there some place you can rent if you needed to rent to have the land to expand and to try to use that loan funds for. Ultimately, I know as far as the FSA side goes, we're looking that your farm is going to be self-sustainable. We're wanting majority of the gross income from your farm to be able to cover your installment amount. Obviously we look at some of your non-farm income and stuff, but we're looking that you have a plan that your farm is going to be able to pay for, your installment ultimately. So that's kind of the big thing. And like I said earlier, the one thing to be successful, especially with FSA, is I cannot emphasize records enough. Financial production, keep track of, what you're planting, when you're planting it, when you're harvesting it, what you're selling it for, if you had any waste. That is ultimately the biggest thing that it kind of holds us up, especially with more if you're looking at some specialty crops like vegetables or something. We don't have that many resources out there. So the more records and history you can supply us, the more accurate we can build accurate representation of your cash flow. So hopefully that answers your question a little.
Yeah, thanks. Sai, do you have, something to add, like, or some common advice, general advice, or financial goals you recommend to folks?
Yeah, I would start out, putting together a simple plan, looking at the personal, and not just the, the ag operation, right? Like a personal goal, your situation, right? And then, dive into the, the farm operation and see if there's something that you can undertake, and then you're ready to, take on a debt, to acquire asset. I mean, in this case, it'll be land. I would start out early meeting with a lender, just to get some advice, and not just a private lender, but also a public lender, FSA or RFA. There's several cases where I will run scenarios. Say, if you don't have the 3 year requirement for FSA, maybe we can look at RFA, right? They also have a down payment assistance program for beginning farmer. and without the 3-year requirement, but you need to enroll into a farm business management program. So kind of think through different scenario. So I would, like I said, start early, meet with a lender, and then if you want to tap into FSA, meet with FSA early before you even look at a property and sign a purchase agreement.
I agree. Start early. That has been one of the most common pitfalls I've seen with applicants over the last year trying to use the down payment assistance grant. Just making sure you can, you're not required to have all this in order at the time you apply, but it's going to make it a lot easier if you've already put together your business plan. You've already done some of that visioning and prep, and you've already met with a lender to begin this process. So definitely get started early. And that's, our goals of this webinar series is really to start thinking about this before you apply for the grant and be on top of things, understanding the timelines and expectations here when you're buying your farm